Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting of the Lowell City Council to order. We'll begin with the council prayer. Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Let's honor America with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Mendonça.
Here.
Councilor Murcia.
Here.
Mayor Milanazzo.
Here.
Councilor Murphy.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Councilor Caulfield.
Here.
Councilor Dakota.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Councilor Martin.
Here.
9 present.
Good evening. The chair would like to recognize Councilor Rita Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in Docking Chamber for Rosemarie Rosebud Hagen, a lifelong resident of Lowell. She received her education in the Lowell schools and was a graduate of Lowell High School. She was employed for many years by Raytheon in Andover. She was a communicant of St. Michael's Church and was a member of the East End Club Ladies Auxiliary, along with myself. She is survived by her son Richard and her 2 daughters, Janice and Joyce, 8 grandchildren and 7 great-grandchildren. She will be truly missed by her family and those of us who are members of the East End Club Ladies Auxiliary along with her. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Mercier. Chair recognizes Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I also would like a moment of silence with Docking Chambers for John J. Dodge, a loving and devoted husband, father, and grandfather. Mr. Dodge leaves his loving wife, Melina, a son, and 3 grandchildren. Mr. Dodge served his country with pride and distinction in the United States Marines during the Second World War, was a professional musician, and an outstanding citizen of our city. May he rest in peace.
Thank you, Councilor Caulfield. May we all rise in a moment of silence in Docking Chambers and remember all those who have passed away since our last meeting as well. Thank you. May they rest in peace. Thank you. The first order of business this evening is a pleasure for me as mayor and my colleagues to present a citation to Lieutenant Timothy Downs. If we could have Lieutenant Downs come to the podium along with, I'm sure, Chief Pitter, and I'm thrilled to see all of the local firefighters here supporting Lieutenant Downs. You're all true heroes, especially with what did happen at the Jackson Street Mill Complex. I know that we're honoring Lieutenant Downs. Well, Lieutenant Downs will be the first one to tell you that there were other people who risked their lives that day as well, but at the behest of this city administration and this city council, we wanted to make special note of what happened that day and the role that Lieutenant Downs played. So, as mayor, it's my pleasure to present this citation. Be it hereby known to all that the City of Lowell and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts honors Lieutenant Timothy Downs upon his heroic efforts during the recent Jackson Street Mill collapse. Lieutenant Downs, along with other members of the Lowell Fire Department and Lowell Police Department, worked hard to protect the workers and was able to avoid a tragedy. Lieutenant Downs used his own body to shield the injured worker from being struck by falling bricks. The entire City of Lowell is proud to honor Lieutenant Downs for his continued devotion as a member of the Lowell Fire Department, given this 9th day of February 2010 by James L. Milanazzo, Mayor of the City of Lowell. Lieutenant Downs, congratulations. Chair recognizes Chief Pitta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to take this opportunity to offer my congratulations to Lieutenant Downs and those of the entire fire department. We think he's a true example of a Lowell firefighter and a Lowell fire officer. And as you can tell by the crowd here, we're very proud of him and very happy for him. So
proud of him as
congratulations,
well.
Lieutenant Downs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are certainly all welcome to stay, but if you do leave, we'll certainly understand. Thank you for showing your support. Thank you. At this point of the agenda, I'd like to call upon LZ Nunn, the Director of the Cultural Office of Lowell, to come forward and give us a summary of our successful Winterfest weekend, which just took place this past weekend, and to talk a little about the awards that had been noted, and then a special award that she'd like to give out tonight. LZ?
Thank you, Mayor Milanazzo, members of the council, and Mr. Manager. We had an extremely successful Lowell Winterfest event. This was our 10th anniversary event this last weekend, and we had participation from many of our council members, including our Honorable Councilor Rita Mercier was actually at the dog track announcing. So we thank her for her support. I'd like to just say a few words about Winterfest this year. As I mentioned, we had actually more success than this event than we anticipated, in part because we really worked hard to build new children's activities in the downtown and try and link with our downtown businesses. Attendance, by all accounts, was up at various venues between 26 and 28%. And this we think was due to strong and well-coordinated marketing and PR efforts. We brought people from about over 20 communities across the state and had really excellent coverage everywhere from the Lowell Sun, Boston Globe, Boston Herald, and about 25 different websites across the state. My role today is just to introduce some of our winners of various competitions. For the National Human Dog Sled Races, we had 3 winners this year of the costume competition, and I know Councilor Mercier could attest to the liveliness that she witnessed on that dog track. Best costume went to now you'll have to excuse me on my pronunciation, Mooshington's Dr. Seuss team. The Flintstones were number 2, and BC Chippendales, which was actually the Lowell Devils Booster Club. National Human Dog Sled Race winner was the Chippendevils, and also the runner-up was the Nor'easters. We actually also had the Mayor's Cup, which was the Lowell High School teams, and many other teams in our area competed. The Mayor's Cup went to the Lowell High cross-country team, so we congratulate them. Snowman competition, this took place out in JFK Plaza, and we were really excited and honored to award the gold medal to the J.G. Pine Arts Magnet School, silver to the Sullivan Middle School, and bronze to the Butler Middle School. And the North Bowl Soup competition, which is one of the favorites during Winterfest, culinary award went to Lowell High School Hospitality Academy. People's Choice, the top prize went to Cobblestones for their clam chowder. Second was Saints Medical Center for their grilled chicken corn chowder. And Ricardo's was third with Italian trottoli and trucchia soup. So now that we've got you all hungry and ready for the next thing, we want to introduce a very honored guest tonight to present the Susan E. Leggett Volunteer Award for Winterfest. This is a special award that goes to somebody who's worked very hard on this event over the years, and each year a new person gets this award, and we're honored to have Janet Leggett, Susan E. Leggett's sister, present that for us tonight.
Thank you very much, and good evening. Oops, sorry. It's a pleasure to be here tonight and to be remembering my sister Susan. For folks that knew her, you know of her passion for the city of Lowell and her passion for working for the city of Lowell. It was very important to her to give back. She knew that she was blessed with a lot of gifts in life and that it was important to give back. And she also passed that on to a lot of people, many people in her family even. So that's why I'm here tonight, and so happy to be presenting this award in her memory to Susan Damari. Susan has worked for years on Winterfest. We think it was 6 years that she's been working on it. And she has been as dedicated as anyone that I have ever seen. And she really reminds me a lot of my sister in that she had a job where this was part of her job, but she's gone way above and beyond that and continues to do that. So it's my pleasure to present this clock. This is giving her a little more time to do a little more volunteering to Susan Damari.
Thank you very much, Janet. Yes, I started Winterfest back when I started working on Winterfest when I worked in the city of Lowell, and I am blessed to be working for an employer now who encourages us to be part of the community. You know, the Lowell 5 is very involved in Winterfest, and they've always supported our community efforts with that. So just thank you. This is a whole group effort, so I'm a little humbled and embarrassed to be singled out tonight because I know all of the work that hundreds of people put into this event, and so I appreciate it, and I appreciate the kind words, Janet, and I also appreciate a family that supports me being out in evenings and weekends because they just know it's part of what I do, and so I appreciate that. But thank you.
Thank you, sir. Congratulations. Thank you, Elsie, very much, and Janet, thank you so much, and again, congratulations, Sue. Moving on with the agenda, minutes of the February 2nd meeting for acceptance. Motion by Councilor Mendonça, second by Councilor Elliott. Any further discussion on the minutes? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Thank you. City Manager, communications, responses to council motions and requests. Do we have anyone that would like to? Councilor Mendonça, then Councilor Elliott.
Yes, in the packet, there's a response to my motion regarding a report of the status of inspectional services, which the city manager has provided, and I'm grateful for that. It is, of course, a report of progress, so we expect that more things will happen over the coming months, but this is a beginning and explains what has happened so far, and of course, we had already heard about some of the dismissals and hirings that have occurred within the department, so I look forward to reports of progress as they become available. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott, then Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to follow up on Councilor Mendonca's comment and request. I appreciate the report, Mr. Manager. I was also interested to find out exactly what the status of any or the investigations that have been taking place or were underway. I had hoped this report had included, what they're all about. We literally, I haven't heard anything since, I guess, the story was broke last March. So it's been a number of months. So can you tell us? I know the Inspector General has been in, and really just through published reports, subpoenas were requested. Can you update us? I know that I've received a number of requests. I'm sure the public at home would like to know what's going on. This is a good report to show that, and you've made some decisions, you've made some personnel changes in there, but I would also like to know, what is the status? I mean, have you been in contact with the Inspector General's office? I think it's important to know that what is going on, what has transpired in the last 10 10 months, 9, 10 months?
I'm going to, I'll probably kick this over to the city solicitor. As you point out, there is the Inspector General has been here. The Inspector General actually, as many of you may recall, was actually brought in here a couple of years ago for another matter with a property in the city that was, complaints were raised regarding the taxation of that property when it was not a completed, it was a completed property, but it was not being assessed fully, and that was, there were investigation that was launched as a result of that. We're still waiting to hear some feedback from the Inspector General's office on that. But the Inspector General has been here, has been working with city officials. We're somewhat limited on what we can say at this point because of the investigation that's ongoing with the Inspector General and other law enforcement authorities. But I'll ask the city solicitor to speak to that.
As the manager had indicated, actually back when some of these motions first were brought on the council floor, the law department was contacted by certain law enforcement agencies that are actively involved in ongoing investigations, and we were asked at that time to not disclose certain things that may be under our control. Since that time, in the recent weeks, particularly in light of the most recent motion of Councilwoman Donka, I have been in touch with individuals from these agencies, and we're in the process of trying to work through what information the city can sort of wrap up and tie up with respect to some of the ongoing matters that you refer to. And there's also been an agreement that before anything is made public, we will present it to them prior to any disclosure. And at this point, that's pretty much the most that can be said.
Do we have any time frame when this is all going to come to
Well, there's
fruition?
different issues, and I think some of these issues, I would anticipate seeing closure, at least at our end on a municipal side, in the upcoming weeks, as quickly as, 2 weeks or so.
Okay. I mean, because I know the manager alluded to one reason why they came in, but they've also, Inspector General has been here in the past on tow contract, and then once the investigation or their analysis is complete,
Right.
they issue a letter, they issue a report. I think something similar when we had the WIB board. It wasn't the Inspector General, but it was, another agency. So I just want to bring some closure and find out what took place, where this is going, and I know that the manager has hired someone to address systems and procedures, and that's a very good step in the positive direction. But it'd be nice to settle this and find out exactly. I'd like to know, and I'm sure the people at home would like to know what's been going on.
Absolutely. And again, we're looking at different organizations. The one that we're obviously involved in is the municipal side. There are certain municipal issues that we would like to wrap up. But we have specifically, going back in some time, been asked to pull back a bit. And that goes on with some of the different matters that are pending. But we could expect to see conclusion from the city side in the not-so-distant future. That's not to say that you can anticipate or should anticipate conclusion from other agencies that may be doing work here.
Okay. What does that mean on the city side?
Municipal issues. There are certain there are certain issues that have a municipal impact, and that's what we wanted to move forward on. And again, no one wants to see sort of concurrent investigations into matters, and as a result, we were asked to hold back. I think, there are some municipal issues that we can conclude now safely without compromising any other agency's investigation, and that's what part of this delay is. I mean, we all want things to be able to move quicker, but they're serious issues, and people want to do a thorough job and make sure that mistakes aren't made, and all the things that you can anticipate and expect. So we're at a stage now where I think some of this can be safely concluded, again, without harming any pending matters or any other pending investigations.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick, then Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Manager, you have given us an update on the Hamilton Canal District. On the desk this evening, I was going to make a motion to refer that to the Economic Development Subcommittee. I think, I know I made a motion back sometime at the end of last year. I think Councilor Kazanjian made a similar motion to try and have regular meetings, maybe quarterly, to keep everybody, all the parties that have an interest in this up to date, and including our state delegation, state reps, and the Senator and Congresswoman Songus, so that we have an idea of everybody gets together at least once every 3 or 4 months to see where we're at. And it appears to be good news. Hopefully we can post this on the website somewhere for people at home. But I think it would be a good idea if we have a subcommittee meeting and invite all the stakeholders, and so everybody has an update and see where we're going in the next several months as well. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Martin, to refer the report on the Hamilton Canal to the Economic Development Subcommittee. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, vote. Councilor Caulfield and Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to pick up briefly what Councilor Elliott brought forward earlier about the investigation. It's really investigations, plural. Is that so, Mr. Manager? There's more than... The Inspector General's been in here since 2008.
Actually, the Inspector General's been in here before that. The Inspector General was in here back in 2007, working on some matters, and we've been referring other matters.
The latter part of 2007, then it went into 2008.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
So it's investigations. We know that.
Right.
And I'm looking forward to an outcome of this as well.
Right, and I think that if I could, to Councilor Elliott's comment that there's in other cases, there's been a letter that's been issued, a report that's been issued by the Inspector General. And in some cases that does occur because they have recommendations as to where improvements could be made. And I think that particularly in one of those cases, we haven't received a letter, but we're aware of what took place there, that situation I spoke of before, and we have improved the system that we have so that there's better communication between the assessor's office and the building office. There are a couple of other matters that they were looking into that are still potentially ongoing. We know at least one is still ongoing, and we may get a letter or a report on that, or it may be referred to a law enforcement agency and involves them, and there may be something that comes out of that. We can't guarantee that there is going to be something that comes in that way. And then we have our own internal investigations, as the solicitor indicated, that we've kind of had to hold back on some of our findings at the request of the law enforcement agencies and the Inspector General's office. But I'm anxious to get this behind us. I think we have certainly taken steps based upon the investigations that we have already put in place and have done in conjunction with the Inspector General. There have been staffing changes that have been made as a result of those investigations. There was a termination this summer, as you know, and we're taking a number of steps. The bringing on Ms. Cashman has been very positive for us. I think a number of us who met yesterday to go over a number of the initial findings show that there are some real internal control weaknesses that need to be addressed, and we're acting to do that and put the proper systems and procedures in place. And people in the city need to know that that there's a level of integrity with regards to our inspectional services people, and that's the top goal we have in mind at this time.
I just want to make a statement that this council has been criticized for not bringing this up for discussion. It's a very delicate issue. It's in the hands of the investigators, and when they release that report, then I'll make a statement.
That's
but
correct.
Up until then, I think the council is doing what's right, and let the Inspector General and those investigators handle those issues.
Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, holding back on scheduling a finance subcommittee meeting because I filed a motion a while ago about unemployment costs. Do you have any idea when that report will be forthcoming?
That should be in your hands this Friday.
Okay, so maybe we'll schedule it for a couple of weeks out anyway.
I know that this finance subcommittee was also looking for the local aid figures, and we don't have those local aid figures yet. There is some hope that there's going to be a local aid resolution that's passed this year, which has not happened the past couple of years, and that should be coming out sometime in March. Also, I know that the finance subcommittee wanted to look at the quarterly reports that are prepared by the auditor and by the CFO, and so those are in your hands now. So certainly
maybe
a couple of weeks from now.
A couple of meetings.
Thank you.
The other issue I had, Mr. Manager, is I appreciate you getting back on the dog park. We got a response back. I had made a motion a while ago, and I guess I was a little disappointed to see the cost. It's going to cost $8,000 to run one light out to that dog park.
That's the calculation that was given to us by the department, by the Department of Public Works, I believe, gave us this number that there is no electricity out at that site, so we would have to, get electricity out there. We did look at some other options, including the solar option, but it is we did look into this, and it is a costly given, and particularly given the fact that the park regulations of the city actually indicate that people should not be out in the parks 1 hour after sunset. So we're really be talking about a very short period of time that people would be using this with lights. So.
Well, it's not possible to just run a wire from one of the poles to a street pole. I mean, I find it hard to believe it's going to cost $8,000 to put a street light there. And I think the folks at Lowell and Lease were enthusiastic. If you go to their website, that there was going to be a light there. And I understand the parks close, an hour after sunset, but November, December, if you go by there's a number of people out there, and they're in the pitch black with their dogs. It almost makes no sense. I understand the ordinance for other parks, but when are people supposed to use this dog park if it's an hour after sunset? This is an issue I think we need to have to take a look at to let people maybe bend the rules a little bit for those people that have dogs. There's 1,800 dogs licensed in the city, so.
The other issue, Counselor, is that, as I indicate here, we're working with Lowell Unleashed actually to have them assume management.
Right.
And certainly at that time, if they would like to have a light installed, they can certainly have that done, and we certainly work.
That's fine, Mr. Manager. If you're saying it's $8,000, I think that's a pretty steep figure, but maybe if there is a move to change ownership, they can get it
and I can certainly go back
a lot cheaper.
Let's go back to the department and see if there's, how those numbers were derived.
Okay.
That was the number that was given to me.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are pushing a little past public hearing time, but I will recognize Councilor Murphy while we're still under communications.
Thank you. I wanted to go back to the report on the inspectional services and address the organization that's been laid out here, whereby the senior inspector has taken over temporarily the position of building commissioner, and we now have an interim director. I was under the impression that Ms. Cashman would be replacing Robert Camacho. How is this not a new position, and how is this being funded?
It's being funded with first off, this is, Ms. Cashman is only there on a temporary basis, only for 3 months. She's been assigned the responsibility of overseeing the department. from a managerial standpoint. She is not a building commissioner. She doesn't have the qualifications to be a building commissioner. So what we've done is Mr. St. Hilaire does have those credentials. So he, similar to where we were a few years ago when we had a vacancy, he is filling in as the building commissioner. But it's clear that we need someone in that office, as I've indicated in my report, that is a manager, someone who can handle the issues of personnel administration, putting in place the necessary systems, making sure that the employees are actually doing the jobs to which they have been assigned, and the building commissioner's responsibilities are strictly focused upon actually, doing the more technical tasks of signing off on the plans and signing off on the necessary zoning determinations.
So he's qualified as an inspector, but not necessarily as a commissioner?
No, he's actually qualified as a commissioner.
He has since?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he has the qualifications to be a commissioner. He just has not had that title here in the city. He has the title of a senior inspector here, but he does have the qualifications to be a building commissioner.
And how has this affected the actual operations of the department?
To the better.
I mean, you can see when you look at the mid-year numbers that in plumbing and gas inspections, we're significantly down. We're at, I think, 31% and 27% respectively. So how has the absence of somebody with a construction building background affected?
The numbers that, in terms of the plumbing and gas, the numbers that we're seeing are actually showing an increase in the total number of inspections that are taking place as opposed to the first 6 months of the calendar year. So, in 2009.
And then back to the question I had, how is this temporary position being funded?
Well, Mr. Camacho is no longer with us, so his salary has been shifted over to this temporary position.
And then that's just gone along the organizational line, or? I mean, if you have a temporary building commissioner, his salary hasn't changed.
No, the senior inspector now carrying the title of building commissioner, his salary has not changed.
Okay.
No, he's receiving his own salary, so that frees up the money that will have been being paid to Mr. Camacho.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the communications? Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've raised this issue in the past, Mr. Manager, but we've got at least 2 tonight email communications that come through the mayor's office. One about a woman inquiring about keeping a horse on her property, another about traffic and parking meters. We get these, and there's really no indication to the council whether anybody has communicated back with those people, what the communication has been. Is that anything that we've been able to make any progress on?
Well,
and I suppose all 9 of us could call these people, and get the same, but there might have already been a communication back and forth. So, I mean, I appreciate the effort, in distributing the emails, and we do get them forwarded by email too, but it doesn't seem in this, in a medium designed to promote efficiency, we've got massive inefficiency here.
I don't disagree. It's something that we've been trying to do. These are coming in through the eGov system. The way that's set up, the IT director has advised me that there's limitations to how that can be. Those come into the system and they don't get sent out to outside email addresses, which the councilors have. So that's been a hurdle for us. I assume that the mayor's aide gets these as well when they come into the mayor's office or the city council email, and it is not, I agree with you, it's not the best system in that regard. The eGov works very well in terms of when people send off to a department or to the manager, that we get those and we respond immediately. When it goes off to the city council, I'm not sure what's done when it gets to that point. And I agree we need to, there should be a way to fix this problem, but I have not been able to find that way yet. But I will, I think it may be helpful for me to have the IT director prepare a report to you on that, and so that there's full understanding by the council of what the limitations are to the eGov system.
Well, when this was raised before, I think one of the requests that was made, we were going to try is we would at least get the response back, to see the response that went back to these people. So then if we were going to follow up with a phone call, we'd know but that hasn't happened.
And again, Counselor, unfortunately, I don't manage that.
Right.
That element, that staff, and I'm not sure what, those two emails that you mentioned that came through eGov, I've never seen those. This is the first I've heard about either one of those cases, those situations. So I don't know if anyone's responded or not. What happens is that people, they sound, particularly the parking one, sounds like it might be an operational issue. The horse one, I'm not sure what it has to do with. I assume it may have something to do with Councilman Johnson's motion later in the evening. But it seems to me that could have been something that was sent off to, actually, I do know that, I did hear that Mr. Singleton at the health department was dealing with a woman on a horse issue, so that might have been it. But if they're sent to the operational departments, we know that there's some type of response that's given, but not necessarily when it goes to the city councils.
Okay.
Some people feel inclined to skip over the operational people that can handle it at an immediate basis and go right to the city council.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilor Mercier, then Councilman Johnson. We are getting really dangerously past city at the
Yes.
public hearing.
Well, there's no requirement, Mr. Mayor, I
go to
was
the
really
public
to
hearing.
wait until after the
okay.
hearing to talk
Okay.
about these, but.
Well, I don't know what the problem is. You either get a phone call or you get an email. If you get a phone call, you try to address it. You get an email, you try to do the same. Evidently, Councilman Donza already got the information because he made a motion for it. And I think it'll be forwarded to you, Mr. Manager, won't it? And I'm wondering if the ordinance was changed some years ago, but that's your motion, and we'll wait till that happens. But I don't know what the problem is. You get a phone call, you get an email, you do what you have to do. You just did that. You made a motion. Very simple.
Right. Councilman Donza.
Yeah, I may have been part of this consternation. And hearing that people were sending emails to the council, and I hadn't received any, I inquired with Diane at the mayor's office just to find out what's going on with these. So I had made a request that if there was a message addressed to me or the entire council, that she forward that to me, and so that I would know what's going on. I had in the past received emails from the mayor's office indicating this is what I did, but I didn't get the original email, so I was at a loss as to why it was done or who requested it. And so this past week, I've seen a number of emails come through from the eGov system, and so I may be to blame for the deluge all of a sudden. But that one about the horse, I actually was contacted separately from eGov and followed up on it. So just thought I'd explain why maybe these are coming through all of a sudden. But one part about it that bothered me was that I know that when I was in that system previously to the adoption of maybe this eGov, that when they had the ability that when somebody checked off that send this to this counselor or this school committee person, that it was automatically emailed if that email was in the system. It was direct. It didn't have to go through the mayor's office or anyone else. So I was surprised to hear that that was no longer a capability that they had, that the form now can only go through the mayor's office and then be forwarded. So there's a little bit of delay in getting the information.
Right.
Council Martin.
And that's the problem. I mean, people expect this form of communication as a little bit of immediacy or urgency to it, and if it's taken time to get, forwarded to a counselor, after the fact or through work, although if you try to email me at home, I'm now on my 10th day of trying to switch over to Comcast unsuccessfully, so it's still going to take a little while more, but I'm sure they're working hard on it. It's not an efficient system, and that's the frustration of it.
And one of the solutions may be to go back to the old system when it comes to the city council and move them out of the eGov. Because eGov really probably should just be limited to the administrative issues that we have to follow up on, and then have communications for the council go through the old system where there's a place where they can communicate with the city councilors directly and take the council out of the eGov system. That may be the solution.
Councilor Elliott?
Yeah, I agree. I think that probably is a confusion that, people that go into the system. In fact, I went in today just to sort of get an understanding as what, residents, what the process is that they go through. So that might be the solution, that if they need direct, response, then they go right to the administrative side versus, and sometimes, some residents may not be satisfied with the answer. Maybe this woman that wants to board a horse wasn't satisfied, so she sent an email to the councilors, which, the system works. But I do understand the point. When we all get them, I sit there and say, should I file a motion? Should I send it to? And most times I'll send it to you, Mr. Manager,
Right.
when we get them. But when we all get them, it's, who should respond to it? So.
Yeah, I do think that might be the right solution to eliminate the confusion, and then anyone dealing, because the problem is if they go into the eGov system, it does take, it does require that extra step, and if that's not happening, then it puts the city council in a position where they look like they're not responding, and so we can clear that. I think we can probably clear that up pretty quickly.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Motion by Councilman Donza, second by Councilor Elliott, to accept the communication from city manager, place on file. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, to vote. Public hearing time. First public hearing, in city council vote, accepting the provisions of section 18A of chapter 32B of the Massachusetts General Laws regarding a Medicare extension plan. Public hearing is now open to all those wishing to speak in favor.
Before we begin, I could potentially have a conflict of interest on this, and in order to participate, I want to be sure that we are in fact invoking the rule of necessity, if the city solicitor would.
Okay, Madam Solicitor, this is the rule of necessity?
Right. There is a written opinion, as is what is suggested under 268A, a ruling from the city solicitor's office that the rule of necessity is appropriate. In this particular case, as indicated in the opinion, I believe it is appropriate because virtually every member of the council, if not all, could potentially partake eventually of our city retirement system. And as a result, everyone could potentially have themselves, let alone relatives or other types of potential conflicts, an actual interest, financial interest, in the acceptance or non-acceptance of 18A. And accordingly, there otherwise wouldn't be a quorum met, and under those circumstances, the council would then be free to act. However, as I noted, if you do want to participate, you're not required to under the rule of necessity, but if you do want to participate, you simply state what your potential conflict could be, and then you're free to participate.
So we would need a motion to invoke the rule of necessity.
Yes.
Motion by Councilman
And I'll
Donza,
second
second
it.
by Councilor Mercia. Any discussion on the Councilor Martin?
So do we all have to state our potential conflict before we vote? All right, so as a paid part-time employee, I have a potential conflict in this, so I would decline to participate in this vote unless we invoke the rule of necessity. So I state that for the record. All of us have to do that?
Right. Since the rule has been invoked, the members merely have to state what their potential conflict is, and quite frankly, it's, as I see it, It's exactly what I had just said.
Okay, well, I'm a potential participant in the plan,
Right.
so.
Yeah. It's unusual in the sense that virtually, again, every member will have an identical.
Yeah, so, well, I'll just state my conflict. I have people that work in the school system, and therefore they take part in the health system of the city. It could be a potential conflict there.
Thank you. Council Mercia?
I am a potential participant as well as I do collect a pension from my husband.
Council Murphy?
I don't believe I have any conflict.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Councilor
not gonna
Broderick?
retire?
Yes, I have a potential conflict, I guess, as a part-time paid employee of the city that at some point may participate, I guess. Thank you.
Council Caulfield?
I echo my colleague to my right, the same thing.
Council Dakota?
I have a potential conflict as family members working in the school system.
Council Elliott?
Can I just ask a clarification?
Yes.
Because we are paid as city councilors, is that our potential conflict in the future? Okay, just so I know, and I'm sure people at home are wondering, what are these city councils talking about? Okay, so I, as a part-time employee, I disclose that I would have a potential conflict. Okay, thank you.
If my colleagues wouldn't mind, from the chair, I would like to also acknowledge a potential conflict as being a part-time employee, and also my wife is a school teacher in the school system. Chair recognizes Manager Lynch.
Just for the record, I suppose I should disclose, too, I have a potential conflict as a full-time employee of the city who receives the health insurance or could be receiving health insurance in the future.
Okay, thank you. Getting back to the public hearing, I'd like to yes, I'm sorry, we had a motion, it's been seconded. All those in favor of invoking the rule of necessity, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Vote. Thank you. Do we need a roll call on that? No? Okay, thank you. Getting back to the public hearing is now open for all those wishing to speak in favor. In favor? Chair recognizes Mr. O'Connor.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to say at this time, congratulations, Mr. Mayor,
Thank
for
you.
your appointment as mayor. Put up there. As I just listened to, it's like the fox watching the hen house here, isn't it? You know, who everybody's involved in insurance. I'm not particularly in favor or against this. I'm more here for informational purposes. I've tried to acquire what this is really all about. I mean, I went on the internet, and this section of law does not actually show up there. Section 18 shows up. I'm pretty sure that this has something to do with a supplemental insurance plan that, you know, whether it's under Part A, B, or D, whatever it pays for. One of the questions that I really have, I'm trying to figure out why the city is even in the supplemental insurance business. We're self-insured, which means simply that Blue Cross Blue Shield basically only administers our health insurance. The taxpayer pays all claims. You go into the hospital, they spend $50,000, it comes out of the fund that's funded by the taxpayers of the city and the employees. All right? And why would we want to go into supplemental for retirees? People that go on Medicaid, or Medicare, excuse me, once they hit 65, have to have their own and supplemental insurance. Now, if you're a retiree here in the city, if you're a municipal employee, gee, you get all this paid for. And you get this included, and it shouldn't be there. There are people that are in the real world, and I want to say the real world, that are in the private sector, that have to pay for their own supplemental. You see advertisements on television all the time through AARP, you know, pick up this here and they can't pay for these extra costs through Medicare because Medicare doesn't pay for them. There are people that fall in these donut hole predicaments and stuff where they can't pay for their prescriptions and whatnot. And here we are in government who is supposed to be downsizing and getting smaller, I would hope, and we're paying for all these things. The largest cost to this city, one of the largest costs to this city, I think, is health insurance. And we have this additional supplemental plan that we really don't even have to have. And I'd like to know why we have it. I don't even know what's being voted tonight here exactly, or what you're accepting. And I'd like to know whether or not is this going to be a cost saving to the city? Is it going to cost the city more? Is there some reason why, you know, this is actually being brought up? I would just like to know. I'd like to also know if there's possibility to find out exactly what the supplemental total cost is on like all our insurance. That's all I came out here to say. Informational purposes only. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. I'd like to open the public hearing for those wishing to speak in opposition. In opposition? In opposition? Public hearing is closed. Just for the information of the council, this actually is being referred to the city clerk's office for 7 days. I believe we can discuss it this evening, but the vote will actually happen next Tuesday. I'm going to recognize Councilor Caulfield had his hand up first.
Mr. Mayor, is there no discussion on this issue tonight?
I believe we can discuss it. The vote will be
Discussion.
next week. It'll be referred to the city clerk's office.
Okay, just to help Mr. O'Connor with his request, I'm asking the same thing, Mr. Manager. This would pertain to retirees and anyone who is working for the city that has Plan A, Plan B. Those plans would be implemented before the primary insurance plan would come into effect. Is that so?
Counselor, it may be helpful for me to make the presentation that I have, and that may address, just for the sake of Mr. O'Connor's immediate questions, though, why do we do this? By state law, we've accepted the statute here in the city of Lowell, as almost every community has, that we pay for retirees' health insurance, at least 50%. And the decision was made some time ago here in the city of Lowell to pay 75%. The short answer to the question of whether this is a cost saver or an additional cost is that this is a cost saver for the city to do this. Perhaps, though, it might be best for me to walk you through the presentation. You have a copy of it on your desk, and I believe to the viewing audience this is hooked in, or hopefully it is. The issue here is the adoption of Section 18A of Massachusetts Chapter 32B. The reason Mr. O'Connor was not able to find this in the law books is it's a fairly new law, and it hasn't come out yet in the supplements. We have several issues I want to go over tonight. The first is, what is Section 18A? What is Medicare? Most people know what Medicare is, at least in a general sense. I do have Sue Shalou from Cooking Company, our health insurance consultant, here today to speak to specific questions, or the more complex questions that I will not have the answers for. Mr. O'Connor is correct in terms of our statistics and our health costs. It is one of the biggest budget items that we have. And as Councilor Caulfield always points out, it has grown dramatically over time, and I'll get into that a little bit. I do want to talk about retiree health insurance and the supplemental programs we have, and then go back to the question of why is it in our interest to adopt Section 18A. Chapter 32B, Massachusetts General Laws, specifically refers to health insurance issues for municipal employees. There are a number of sections of that the city has adopted through the years, but basically, Chapter 32B governs municipal health insurance. Section 18, which was on the books, and Mr. O'Connor, I'm sure, saw that one, is basically a requirement that eligible retirees, eligible in terms of a Medicare system, are required to enroll in the Medicare system upon their retirement. And this is Section 18 actually says that it has to occur for all eligible retirees, even the ones that are currently retired. So once you do that, it applies to everyone. Section 18A is a new law, as I said, and it applies only to future Medicare-eligible retirees. It was done through emergency legislation passed in November of 2008. It is a local acceptance statute, and it does require adoption by the City Council, by the legislative body. We chose to not do Section 18. You can see that there's about 140 communities that have adopted Section 18, and there's a partial list of some of them, including some very large ones. The City of Lowell did not do that. If we were to do Section 18 now, and I don't think I have a slide on this coming up, but if we were to do Section 18 now, it would affect a number of our retirees that have been collecting their pensions and paying and participating in our active programs. We would be required to pay a penalty because those people did not enroll in Medicare at the time of their retirement. by us accepting 18, we would be responsible for paying that penalty. Having said that, it would save the city money. It would save us roughly $100,000 a year, but would be an enormous burden on our retirees, who the average age of whom is 79 years of age, many of whom have relatively small pensions, and it would be quite a burden to have them shift over at this time.
And can I interrupt, Mr. Mayor?
Absolutely.
So these folks right now are getting health insurance from the city?
Okay. Right. Most of the people, most of our retirees have enrolled in the Medicare program.
Okay.
But there is a small number, I believe it's 120 that have, 124 that have not.
Okay.
So again, if we were to do Section 18, one, we've made a commitment to the employees' unions that we would not do Section 18. That was an issue that I told the council I would be meeting with them to talk about this. We would save some sum of money, but the burden placed on those retirees would be onerous.
Okay,
and so I made the decision
agree.
to not come in for that type of request. So before Section 18A was adopted or put in place, you could accept Section 18, and we'd be required to locate. We'd have to find all these people. We'd have to enroll them all in Medicare, all of them in Medicare, and we'd be required to pay the penalty that I spoke to. With Section 18A, we enroll only Medicare eligible who retire after this provision is put into place. So, assuming the City Council adopts this tonight, it waits the 7 days, then it would go into effect at that time that anyone retires after that would be required to enroll in Medicare as long as they meet the criteria of being Medicare eligible and the proper age, which basically is the same or similar. This has no effect on current retirees. What is Medicare? Again, most people know this. It's a federally provided medical insurance coverage for retirees and spouses over 65 years of age, or if you are disabled and under 65, or if you have end-stage renal disease. Part A is hospital insurance. It's available premium-free if you are over 65 and you've paid into Medicare for at least 10 years. Part B is really the change here. That would be available to Part A holders for a current monthly premium of $110.50. And that's really what we're saying here, is if we would require people to sign up for Part B under Section 18A. It's determined, eligibility is determined by Social Security Administration. Up until where this really comes into play here for municipalities is, at one point in time, municipal employees did not participate in the Medicare program. That's why we have a number of retirees out there now who are not Medicare eligible. So not everyone, this would not apply to everyone. They may have had a spouse that had enough quarters in or enough years in, and that makes them eligible. But generally speaking, municipal employees were not required to pay into the Medicare system until 1986, and it only affects employees hired after 1986. They pay 1.45% of their salary into the Medicare program, and we, as a city, match that with 1.45%. So for those of you that have been on the City Council for a while, I'm sure you've seen this, that the Medicare tax expense in the city budget has grown from 1986 of $0 to now $2 million a year that we pay into Medicare. However, if we don't have people actually being enrolled in Medicare, we're essentially paying that money for nothing. Effectively, we're double paying, if you will. So this is this is going to continue as more people retire that were hired prior to 1986, and this is going to continue to be a growing number. As I said, not all city retirees are qualify, even people that are coming up. They have to be over the age of 65 or older, and they have to have been hired after 1986. So anyone that doesn't meet those criteria, that criteria is not Medicare eligible. In terms of Medicare premiums, the non-Medicare eligible retirees stay on the active employee plans. Just like now, even if they are Medicare eligible, we did not require them to participate in Medicare prior to now, they pay no Medicare premium. They just stay on our active plans, be it, well, I think in almost every case it would be the Master Medical program that the indemnity plan that they would be participating in. If they do not, if someone is eligible and they want to get in after the fact, get into Part B, or if we had accepted Section 18, there is the 10% per year for each year that you are not enrolled that you would have to pay in. Under Section 18A, there are no penalties for future retirees because we'd be making people sign up immediately upon eligibility. We do offer supplement plans. We already do this. Even though we are not requiring people, and you'll see this in a future slide, even though we're not requiring people right now to sign up for Medicare, we do in fact get most of our retirees that are eligible to sign up. And there are then supplemental plans, as Mr. O'Connor pointed out, that pick up the additional cost beyond the Medicare. We have a MedX program and a carve-out A and B, which picks up any of the costs that are not picked up by Medicare. The premium for that is $121.50 a month. We are looking, after Section 18A is adopted, we are looking to implement Managed Blue for seniors. That would be a new program that we would put in place. It's less expensive than the other options, and that would be less expensive for the employee and less expensive for us since we pay 75% of the cost. And that has more, it's more like an HMO. So it would have preventive care and wellness benefits, which many of our seniors are now looking for, particularly those that have been on the HMO or the PPO, and suddenly they're in the indemnity plan or the carve-out plans. They don't get those benefits. So this is less expensive, and it provides more benefits, which of course is what we've been trying to convince people to do with the HMO or the PPO, to take advantage of that as if they are active employees, as opposed to the indemnity plan. How will Section 18A help? As we all know, we need to reduce costs wherever possible. We're going through a very difficult budget period now, and we anticipate that we're going to continue to go through a difficult budget period for the foreseeable future. And we need to find ways to reduce costs, and that really is driving many of our decisions across city government, across the way we look at our operations, our personnel decisions. It's any way that we can find to reduce costs. It will improve our OPEB liability and hence our bond rating. OPEB. GASB 45, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, circular number 45, which refers to OPEB, other post-employment benefits, which is specifically health insurance for retirees. We have, and you'll see a number in a minute that is staggering. It's a very large number. That does affect our bond rating because we have that there. We don't, and municipalities and government in general is just now starting to show this number on their books, and it does affect our bond rating. 18A will provide for long-term savings. It has no impact on existing retirees, no impact to future non-Medicare retirees, and no penalties to retirees as a city, and it is part of a long-term strategy. Our health insurance costs. Again, Councilor Caulfield has spoken on this numerous times, as have other members of the City Council. Health insurance costs is growing beyond our ability really to pay. The rate increases are truly unsustainable for the city. Massachusetts has some of the highest medical costs in the country. Lowell is not unique as far as municipalities go. I've been watching other communities across the state with similar issues, some worse than us, but it's increasingly growing to take a greater portion of the overall city budget. The cost increase as revenues decrease will obviously has an impact on our employees, our retirees, and most importantly, our taxpayers. It affects what we can do in terms of hiring, and as a result of that, what we can do in terms of the delivery of public services. More money for benefits equals less money for salaries, and which means fewer laborers, firefighters, police, and teachers, which means less services. Some numbers, and this isn't visible to some of you watching from the back, but the council has this in front of them. Health insurance costs in fiscal year 01 to fiscal year 10. Over the last 10 years, our annual cost for health insurance, just on the city side, have grown from $13.1 million to $39.3 million, a 200% increase. In fiscal year 01, it represented 5% of our operating budget. It now represents 13% of our operating budget. And health insurance continuing to rise and an ever-increasing number of retirees, this number is going to continue to grow. The actual amount that we pay out is $56 million in claims per year. We have 8,300 members, 4,500 plans, of which 2,000 are retirees and 2,500 are employees. So again, you can see that retirees now make up 45%. And I don't have a number for what that looked like in 2001, but it was considerably smaller. I would venture to guess, and I don't think it's any great shock, that if you look 5 years out, 10 years out, those numbers are going to be reversed. We're going to have more retirees than we have active employees on our health insurance plans. Our retiree group, the 2,000 retirees, 66 are in Medicare supplements, 34% are in the active non-Medicare plans. We have 600 retirees who remain, of the 689 retirees remaining in the active plans, a number of them are early retirees under the age of 65. We also have the spouses, dependent survivors, and the non-Medicare eligible that are over 65. The cost of the retiree benefits, and this is the number I told you, I warned you would be staggering. That cost of post-employment benefits, the OPEB liability for the City of Lowell right now is $433 million. That's our unfunded liability. As this continues to grow, it's going to affect our budgets. It's going to affect our bond rating. To give you some sense of comparison, our pension liability right now in the city, which is supposed to be paid off by 2028, that unfunded liability, that is $150 million. So the medical costs, the retiree costs, are 3 times that size. I said earlier that most of the people, 91%, actually voluntarily choose. We encourage them, but they have chosen to go into the Part P already. So this really isn't even going to, we're already having a pretty good track record on that. But for the future, as more people become Medicare eligible, they were hired after 1986, it's important that we get them into the Medicare program and not in the active plans. I talked about the Managed Blue, and I won't go into a lot of detail on that. It does have preventive care, it does have tiered prescription coverage, wellness benefits, and the premium is $107. So it's about $10 less, I think, $10 or $14 less per month for the retirees and the MedX and the supplement, the carve-outs that we have. Financial impact to the city, and this is based on a single plan coverage. You can take a look at this and look at what the employees currently pay with the active plans. And then you see under the Medicare plans, they would have the A and B, or the MedX. They would have the Medicare Part A, which has 0 cost, the Part B, which has a total cost of $1,328, I think that is. But the important number for us that we look at is over at the premium savings to the city per retiree. If they were on Master Medical and we now put them into Medicare, we will save $3,105 for each one of those people per year. So every retiree that we do that with, we save that money. It goes down a little bit for each one of the PPO and the HMO, because obviously the biggest savings you're going to have is in the indemnity plan, which is most expensive. The impact on the retiree benefits. There's no change in the current indemnity plan's benefits, because what you do is you have the Medicare and then the carve-out A or B, or the MedX, or the Medicare, the Managed Blue, that actually picks up the additional costs. So what we've done is we've shifted all of those costs out of the trust fund to the Medicare program, but then the additional costs that Medicare doesn't pick up, would be picked up by these. The only, there is additional costs, obviously, for the future retirees. The only extra burden, if you will, is they have to provide 2 cards when they receive service, as opposed to just giving their Blue Cross card. They also have to show a Medicare card, so they have to carry 2 cards. Adoption of 18A is the fiscally responsible choice. We've been paying into the Medicare program, as I said. We've been paying but not receiving full benefits. Soon, it's now been 23 years. Soon, all of our employees will be Medicare eligible. We're shifting the cost from the city to the federal government. As I said, and this really highlights that, 80% of the medical claims will be paid by Medicare instead of the trust fund. And we can then budget with a guarantee that we're required, knowing if we do Section 18A, that the future retirees will accept Part B, and there won't be any question about that. Most are already enrolled, 91%. It's not like it's going to be a big change for a lot of people, but it does give us that guarantee, particularly as more people are eligible and will sign up. Everything's equivalent. It doesn't affect current retirees. There's no risk of future penalties once we do this. We do have to do something about our health insurance cost controls, without a doubt. We have to do more, in fact, and it would have an immediate effect. Once we do this, the actuaries that come in and determine how much our OPEB liability is, that $433 million number, they would immediately be able to reduce that liability on the books. And that would benefit the city in terms of our bond rating, in terms of our overall financial condition. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Councilor Caulfield.
Mr. Manager, that was an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
But the $39 million, that's also the school department included in that.
That's correct.
And I want to point out that many of the teachers and city employees have reverted from the Master Medical to HMO Blue with a savings of about $2.6 million a year. So the employees are realizing that they have to also get involved with this cost factor. So
that's correct. I appreciate you bringing that up, Councilor. It's it's certainly been an effort that we've been making to get people to realize that, and I appreciate the support and the direction that the City Council has provided in really making health insurance a top priority, and this continues that.
Thank you. Councilman Mendonça?
Yes, just some recap. We're going to receive a savings of $3,100, so I assume since the people that participate in these plans pay 25%, that they'll achieve like $1,000 or so that they won't have to pay now to our plan.
No, it will. The retirees will. Future retirees doesn't affect any current retirees. Yes. Future retirees will pay a couple $100s more per year.
But that's because they're buying the supplemental plans?
That's right. They'll be buying the supplemental plans and paying the Medicare Part B.
Okay. And I believe it was in here, you did mention it briefly, that if someone were to retire early so that they're not eligible for Medicare yet, they'll continue in our plan until they are.
That's correct.
So that's as it is today.
Right, except that, and just a point, if there are retirees out there now that are retired and not yet 65, 18A will not affect them. Anyone that retires after this point, if they're under 65, when they get to 65, they will be required to sign up for, and they'll be notified by Social Security that they are now have to sign up for Part B.
And I believe you presented us to our health insurance board made up of our unions.
The Insurance Advisory Committee.
Advisory Committee. And I'm assuming that since they're not here speaking in opposition, that they are aware of this meeting and they've been satisfied or they've had their questions answered as far as the impact of this?
Yes, I think they have. I think it was a very good meeting. We did a couple of things. One, we promised to make a presentation to them, give them the information, the facts. We promised that we would hold off on the public hearing that was scheduled for that same evening till tonight. And the biggest concern they had was that it wouldn't affect current retirees. And we seem to address all of those concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Duncan, Councilor Dakota.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That was a good presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do have a question about this staggering $433 million. So, just so I'm clear, all of the savings will go to pay down that liability?
That's correct.
Okay. And do we have other plans for paying down the liability?
Well, the liability is if you will, is a paper liability, but it is anticipated over the next number of years. That's what we have as a liability. It's all determined by an actuary. This will go a long way towards solving that. It's a very large problem for government agencies and government entities which have never shown this on their books before. This is a relatively new, it was 2005, I think, that this was started to be put in place, a requirement that this be put in place. And for a real plan, I don't know of any, there's only a handful of communities or government entities, state government as well, that have really had developed or have started paying down that liability. The plan that we have, if you will, is that and this is similar, I've had discussions with a number of communities about this, our unfunded liability for pensions will expire in 2028, which means at that time, most of the pensions we pay, or most of the pensions the employees receive, will be coming out of their own contributions once again, or the way it's intended to work. And there may be some cost to us, but it should be minor in comparison. So the thought that we have is that in 2028, that the money that's going towards the pension costs will be shifted over into an OPEB liability fund. Now, let's face it, the reality is that most of us won't be in this chamber in 2028. I may still be, but it's the plan that most communities are looking at as a possibility. That now, if we can do it before then, all the better. But it is a challenge in these fiscal times with everything happening the way it has.
I'm sorry, can I ask another question? So this paper liability, so this $433 million, that is the expected use that we're supposed to fund?
That's the expected cost that we have, and Tom or Cheryl are more familiar with the GASB reading on that, but that's the expected cost that we're going to have for all of the current retirees and all of the active employees that will be retiring over the next lifetime.
It's for their lifetime.
Right.
For their lifetime.
So everyone who's currently on the plan, both retired and active, through their collective lifespans.
Right.
Thank you.
Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could, I know we, in the city budget every year, dedicate a sum to the unfunded pension liability.
That's correct.
That's mandated by state law, right?
Right.
In fact, there's some discussion of allowing us to spread that out over a few more years, right?
That's correct.
Is there any mandate that we start accounting for this?
Not currently. There was some talk a while back of doing something, but given the financial condition of the state and the municipalities, they have not done that. Our unfunded liability is at $433 million. The state's liability, as you can guess, is much, much more. And they don't have any plans as to how they're going to fund theirs, so they have not moved forward to put something in place for municipalities.
So the state doesn't, nor do we.
Right.
I think nor does Medicare for that matter, but.
Right. Some states have actually made the decision to, I believe Texas was talking about codifying that no one was going to pay attention to GASB 45 and the other post-employment benefits. But it's really, I think it's a very useful thing to have. It's very useful to have that on the books so that it brings to everyone's attention what that liability is long-term.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did we not, last year, Mr. Manager, I guess we're getting aside from the focus of the conversation, but the pension liability, did we not adopt extending the actuarial out to, was it 2032? Wasn't part of the local aid package? No, we didn't.
We did not. No.
Okay. That's good to know. Just going back.
I will say that I'm not just along those lines. I know it's off the subject of 18A, but many communities the logic behind extending out the payment schedule to a later date is because of the stock market returns have driven things down, and the burden of having to fund now to make up for the dramatic losses of the past year, give some sense that maybe it should be extended out into the 2030s and then move back from that in the future. So it just really is an actuarial analysis.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, on the, so is the average cost approximately $11,000 for the master medical plan per employee? Is that what this chart reflects?
I believe that's the city cost, yes.
Well, this would be the city and the,
does someone have Sue or Kelly?
Well, I'm just doing the simple math.
Yeah, I think that's
the 25
that's
the total premium cost.
That's the individual cost, right? The family cost is more.
Okay, I understand. What is that cost? And we could get it at a later time.
We don't have that number off the top of our heads.
And we're getting off 18A. I support this. This is a good thing.
I can tell you that the family master medical plan is about $22,000 a year.
22, okay. And then these costs that are included in the report, again, are just for individuals, the HMO, the Blue Care PPO, and HMO. These are not the family costs.
That's correct. These are just individual, right.
Okay. As I was mentioning, this is a good thing, and in the long run, it is going to save us some money. That is a huge number. What impact would this have on that 433, that actuarial number?
Sense. We don't have a sense of that. It's the actuaries would have to come in and recalculate, and they have to do that anyway. Every 2 years, we have to have them back. So I believe they're due back this fall, and they would have to go through that and calculate that out. Even though we have 91% of our people that are eligible for Medicare in Medicare, they have to base their actuarial numbers on because it's not required, on the assumption that no one is going to go into Medicare. So it would have a dramatic impact.
And just one other question. The Health Insurance Trust Fund, it was, I know that a number of audit findings in the managerial report said it was underfunded. That's and is it in better condition than it was for a number of years?
It is, and I will have Tom speak to this, but the issue there is that I think we all talked about this, that for a number of years, 3 years, 2005, 5, 6, 7, I believe it was, when the premiums should have been going up at about 10%, they were only going up about 2%. So we were drawing down the reserves of that trust fund. So back in fiscal year 2008, we increased premiums by 15%. And then we did by 12% in 2009. This year we increased them by 19%. And we now have a healthier trust fund. But
because if we didn't do that, then it goes on the tax rate. I mean, if that trust fund draws down to dangerous levels, then we have to make it up somewhere, and that's out of the general fund.
Yeah, we're hoping to avoid that. We're actually, I don't want to jinx us, but we're having a pretty good year this fiscal year. Through about halfway through the year, through December, I think we're about $700,000 or $800,000 to the good, which is good. The trust fund could probably use another $5 million, so this is making a dent, but we're moving in the right direction.
And what did the auditors recommend? It was a percentage of the budget, wasn't it?
It's a certain number of months premiums that they would have, that we would have on hand. And we've based our numbers for this year on trying to build that reserve up to the proper levels, plus we're doing better. So, but there's still 6 months to go.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Councilor Mendoza?
Yes, one of Councilor Elliott's questions piqued a question in my mind when he asked about the family plan. What would be the impact on a retiree who is eligible but has current coverage in a family plan for people who are not? What's the impact on that scenario?
If it's a current retiree, there's no impact. They wouldn't be forced to move.
No, I'm sorry, not current.
Future retiree.
If someone is retiring but has had a family plan, and there are people covered by that who are not eligible for Medicare, what would be the impact there?
This may be a question for the insurance consultant, but I don't believe that the Medicare eligible plans are family plans.
Right.
They need to be individual plans.
So if they had family members, if you could come to the microphone. I think the way that would work is that they would go into the Medicare, and then they would have they would buy a single plan
Right, because the supplement Medicare is all individual plans. So I think that's why we focused on the individual costs. And I think what Bernie was saying is the savings to the city for an individual would be $2,000 to $3,000 depending on what plan people went in. Sorry, I can't see. The savings to the city would be somewhere, if somebody is currently coming from a family plan and then going to 2 individual plans through Medicare, the savings to the city would be between $5,000 and $7,000. The cost to that family would probably be in the ballpark of somewhere between $300 and $500, again, depending on which plan they enroll in. And again, that's because they'd be coming from a family and they would have to pick up 2 individual Medicare plans.
There's a variation on that, which is one of them is eligible for Medicare and are retiring. They are the ones that have been carrying the plan, but they have a spouse who is maybe a couple of years away. And so how would they be impacted? How would they get health insurance for the spouse?
You would take out 1 Medicare supplement plan and then 1 individual active plan for the spouse who is under age 65.
So they would be eligible to do that even through the city plan?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the vote? I'll entertain a motion to refer to the city clerk for 7 days.
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Caulfield, seconded by Councilor Broderick. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? It's a vote. Referred to the city clerk's office for 7 days. Thank you. Continuing on under public hearings, we have 2 poll location public hearings. National Grid, approximately 36 feet on Charles Street. Again, National Grid, 1 pole on Dutton Street. I'd like to take them both up at the same time. I'd like to open the public hearing for those speaking in favor. Speaking in favor, sir?
Yeah. Hello, good evening. Steve Susi, Engineering Assistant for National Grid. We're just on Dutton Street because we have to move an existing pole, which was in bad shape anyway, and we need to move that pole about 23 feet around that to the corner of Dutton Ave. So we can, a new building be erected and they'll have room for parking and a driveway and getting construction equipment in. And then also on Charles Street, we're petitioning for underground conduits from an existing handhole going the length of the street to the other side, where we'd put a switchgear on private property.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In favor? Hearing none. That portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone in opposition? In opposition? That portion of the public hearing is closed. Referred to the wire inspector by Councilor Rita Mercia, seconded by Councilor Dakota. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Referred to the wire inspector. Thank you. Getting back on with the city manager's agenda. Communication from the city manager. Resignation of Sheila Hallisey as library trustee. Dear Ms. Hallisey, this letter acknowledges the receipt of your letter in which you resigned from the Library Board of Trustees effective March 7th, 2010. Your resignation is accepted. I am filing your resignation and this acceptance thereof with the city clerk as required by law and forwarding all copies as a communication to the city council. The City of Lowell appreciates your years of service as a member of the Library Board of Trustees, and on its behalf, I extend thanks. Very truly yours, Bernard F. Lynch, City Manager. Accept the communication placed on file by Councilman Mendonça, second by Councilor Murphy. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? It's a vote. Thank you. Ordinance in City Council, an ordinance creating a position of data management analyst and establishing the salary therefore in the office of the City Manager. Whereas this position would be responsible for collecting data and constructing statistical models to be utilized as an in-depth administrative tool, and whereas such data-driven management tools have been successfully used to determine agency success rates, formulate goals and tasks, track costs and revenues, identify opportunities, anticipate problems, and whereas it is anticipated that the creation of this position will reduce service time, increase performance output, and ultimately result in significant cost savings for the city. Whereas the City Council, by virtue of General Laws, Chapter 43, Section 5, has a right to reorganize the departments of the City of Lowell, and whereas the voters of Massachusetts have adopted the Home Rule Amendment to the Constitution of Massachusetts, Amendment 89 of Article 2 of the Constitution of Massachusetts, and whereas the City Council, by virtue of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 43, Section 105, has the authority to create and or delete positions, now therefore be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows. The Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, hereinafter called a code, adopted by the City Council on December 23, 2008, as amended, is hereby further amended as follows. 1. In accordance with Chapter 43, Section 105, Mass General Laws, the following position and salary is created in the Office of the City Manager, effective upon passage. 1 full-time data management analyst, 40 hours per week, annual salary $40,000 to $60,000. 2, all provisions of the Code of the City of Lowell as amended, which are not inconsistent with the ordinance, shall continue in effect, but all provisions of said code inconsistent herewith are repealed. 3, this ordinance shall take effect upon its passage in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 43 and 40A of the General Laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Approved this to form Christine P. O'Connor, City Solicitor. Second reading by title. In City Council ordinance, an ordinance creating a position of data management analyst and establishing the salary therefore in the office of the City Manager. Refer to a public hearing for February 20th. I'm sorry, 23rd? February 23rd by Councilor Martin, second by Councilor Broderick. Discussion on referring. Again, it's going to a public hearing.
I would like to take a roll call on that because I don't support it to go to a public hearing.
Okay.
But after the discussion, we can have a roll call.
Sure. Again, I'm not sure how much discussion we can have based upon the fact that it's going to a public hearing, but we can certainly have a roll call. Councilor Elliott.
Well, Mayor, could the manager explain exactly, what the job is going to do? And I think it's important to at least get a better understanding as to.
Chair recognizes the City Manager.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Actually, there's a response in the communication section of the City Manager's portion of the agenda, which outlines the responsibilities. This was a response to a motion by Councilor Murphy requesting that the manager report on the potential for implementing a variant on the cost-saving city staff model program in the City of Lowell. And many councilors will know that this is something that we have been talking about here in the city for some time now, of trying to put in place a performance measurement system that is a management tool to enable us to better provide services to the taxpayers of the city in terms of productivity, but also, most importantly, perhaps not most importantly, but certainly significantly, do it at reduced costs. The system or the model is based upon programs that have been instituted across the country, and I should note have been award-winning programs, award-winning by taxpayer-oriented organizations that are concerned about government not being productive and not being efficient and being too costly. Baltimore is the first city to really put this in place. But Baltimore obviously is a very large city, and you know, a number of other smaller smaller cities have done it as well across the country. But here in Massachusetts, it really got its start, I would say, in the city of Somerville. The city of Somerville determined that there were some opportunities here to really improve performance and improve costs by measuring what you do and then managing to that data. It's not just the compilation of data in and of itself. It's also a process by which that data is utilized by the management team of the city, and particularly the chief executive officer, to take that data and to make changes. If anything, what this program is intended to do is move away from the status quo. The status quo being business as usual, the way we do things, the way a community does things. It requires that the chief executive sit down with key members of the management team with departments, analyze their productivity measures, their resource allocation utilization, and hold people accountable for what they're doing and find ways to reduce costs and improve productivity. In Somerville, it's been noted for a high level of savings that they have found. It was instituted back in 2004, I believe it was, or 2005, by Mayor Curtatone, and during another tough financial time, and they've seen substantial savings that result from this. Perhaps the best example of it, though, that really hammers home the point is its implementation in the city of Springfield. And I did provide to you in your packet a column that was written by the editor of the Lowell Sun in talking to the director of the oversight board there, who cites that as well as a couple of other things that they did out in Springfield as really being a way of improving the way government operates. You may recall the city of Springfield back in 2006 was about $50 million in the red. They now, as a result of putting in these business practices, have a budget surplus or reserves that are roughly, based upon the numbers I was told just yesterday, even though the editor puts it in as $39 million, I've actually heard the numbers closer to $80 million that they now have because of their ability to sit down and really hold department heads and employees accountable for what they're doing and use the knowledge of those employees and those department heads to improve performance, improve the way they do things. And Somerville and Springfield come immediately to mind. There are a number of other communities across the Commonwealth that are now using it. We've been involved with an organization called MassStat that is made up of a number of communities that have either put a STAT program in place or are looking to put a STAT program in place. There's quite a bit of information sharing. The data that we receive, and this data analyst would really be focused upon pulling together and then working. You know, we can get reports. I can ask for an overtime report on any department, but it's really what that data means to us. How does it compare to the prior reporting period, whether it be the week before, the month before, the year before? How does it compare to other departments? How does it compare to other communities? And that's where it's very helpful to have other communities that we're working with. You know, you establish sort of a best practice on something like that. But it's also, as I said, it's productivity. How many inspections are doing? Where are we doing the inspections? How long does it take to do an inspection? What are the types of inspections that we're finding? What are the outcomes from those inspections? All of that data is compiled and utilized on a regular basis by the city management to focus resources where they're needed and to make sure that we're getting maximum effect for minimum cost. Again, it's been recognized nationally as a system that saves money and improves productivity, and I think it has a tremendous amount of potential here in the city of Lowell.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Before I recognize Councilor Caulfield, the clerk has informed me that we do have a resident registered to speak. Mr. O'Connor is registered to speak on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to say, in regards to the last thing that took place, I'd like to thank the manager for answering my questions. However, you might not like what I'm going to say next regarding this here. When I read this on the agenda that we were going to create another position in this city, I lost my head for a little bit. I'm sitting here saying, was I wrong knowing that several months ago we were cutting a budget here, we were laying people off? I mean, there was a shortfall in local aid, city didn't have the money to do this and that, and now all of a sudden we can create these positions. 2 weeks ago, there was 4 positions in the police department. 3 of them now I know were grants. And most councilors sit there and say, oh, well, grants, they don't cost the city any money. Of course they cost us money. That's 4 families you put in the healthcare system. Again, the largest cost to this city that are not paid for when they go in a hospital, are not paid for by the grant. And in the retirement system, which is another world altogether. I mean, this Lowell retirement system makes the Bernard Madoff Ponzi scheme look like child's play. But this here is just ridiculous to create. The taxpayers are taking a hard burden in this city across this country, and you all know it. Everybody's talking about downsizing government, and government's getting too big. And here we are creating another position, more positions. Our government's getting bigger. And we have to look at that, and we have to say, gee, is that right? Here we are, $45,000 or $50,000 or $60,000 for this position, plus insurance costs. How many people lost their homes in this city? How many people in foreclosure? Taxes are going up, $100, $200 for the average home or whatever. You know, that's 400 or 500 people that have to pay an extra $100 a year just to pay for this position. And that goes on their mortgage payment. And I don't see anything from this council that's sitting there saying, when am I going to represent the people of this city? Because you're not doing it. And it's time that you do it. The people in this city are struggling. And it's time that you have to stand up for them and say, hey, you know, we can't have any more positions. Find another way to do this. And that's what you should be doing tonight. This shouldn't go to a public hearing. This shouldn't even be considered. It's time that government has to stop. Bigger government is not the answer. It's time to start downsizing. And if you talk about saving money in government, well, we can privatize. I read an article in USA Today that talked about a city that was comparable to Lowell down in Georgia, and they privatized their entire city. They had 4 municipal employees. Now, with the exception of police and fire, their total budget was $30 million. Wouldn't it be nice if we were only $30 million? We have insurance costs more than that. You owe the people of this city more than this, creating more positions and just keeping going on, and it's got to stop. I thank you for your time.
Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I always enjoy listening to Pat O'Connor, but I just wanted to make one correction, that the 4 positions in the police department, 3 are on grants, and those civilian employees brought in $2.6 million to the police department through their writing expertise that saved many, many police officers. Mr. Manager, on the topic of Springfield, Springfield went into receivership by the state of Massachusetts. And that's good in a way, because once it goes into receivership, all contracts are null and void, and they have to be renegotiated. And that's where huge savings comes from, when a city like that goes into receivership. You want to comment on that?
Yes. They didn't go into receivership, Councilor.
They were on a control board.
Right. There's a difference between a control board and under a receivership. Chelsea went into receivership. The control board does not have the power to cut up throw away the contracts. The control board's the one that renegotiated contracts. They hired an outside law firm at $2 million to come in and renegotiate contracts that had expired. And it was also the control board that put in place this performance management system. Yeah. But there is that difference.
Mr. Mayor, believe me, I'm not going to debate this issue tonight because it's not the place. It has to go to a public hearing before you can talk about anything pertaining to this ordinance. And I'm bringing this forward. I think I just have to bring this forward. This city's going to get in serious trouble someday over a public hearing when councilors just don't tell a reporter, no comment. And it has to happen. Councilors should not publicly form an opinion or indicate how they are going to vote on any ordinance or any business that's coming before a public hearing until that public hearing has had a fair and impartial hearing. That has to happen. 20-some odd years ago, a counselor made that grave mistake. And the attorney for that client appealed that counsel was biased, and that counsel could not vote on that particular issue. So I'm just requesting, Madam Solicitor, would you please put something together, a legal document for every counselor to let them know how important it is not to comment prior to a public hearing and what the violations could be and so forth, so everyone would be on the same page, because the Lowell Sun reporter called me Saturday evening at home, and I said, no comment. And many counselors, and the mayor did the same. But there were some who didn't, and you cannot identify how you're going to support something or you're not going to support something until the general public has a chance to go to that podium and address that public hearing. It's not fair to them, and it's not fair to the general public.
So, Councilor Caulfield, what would you like us to do with the suggestion that we do a roll call? Because Councilor Mercia has already indicated her position.
Excuse me?
I said, what would you like us to do with the roll call? Because Councilor Mercia has already indicated that she doesn't want this to go to a public hearing.
No, I want it to go to a public hearing.
But I'm just saying that you just said that you'd like the city solicitor to draw up facts and confirm that we're not supposed to be talking about an issue prior to the public hearing. And we now have a motion by Councilor Mercia to have a roll call vote because she's indicated she doesn't support it. And with all due respect, Councilor Caulfield, I was here a couple of weeks ago when we had the public hearing on Middlesex and Wood Street. And with all due respect, your position on Middlesex and Wood Street was well known before that public hearing. So please.
But I didn't say it publicly.
Please.
You can, Mr. Mayor, you can have a voice vote or a roll call vote. It's immaterial to me.
Councilor Mercia, you had your hand up. Do you want to?
Yes. I do have some comments. I just wanted to say that we did get a communication on CityStat in response to Councilor Patrick Murphy's motion, and it said that the city manager wrote in this second paragraph that, you may recall, I described the desirability of a STAT program in the fiscal 08 budget and indicated that the creation of a plan to implement such a program would be a central responsibility of the assistant to the city manager who was hired in that budget. So I say, why can't our assistant to the city manager do that work now? That's why I didn't support the position to go to a public hearing, because I thought that the assistant, Mr. Marshan, and all due respect to you, sir, you haven't even started yet, so I don't know what you're capable of doing. It just may very well be that you are capable of doing this work. They're underscoring your abilities here. I'm not. I think maybe you could do that and save us all some money. But here's the point that I wanted to say. And we had an environmental recycling subcommittee this evening, and again, Councilor Patrick Murphy asked for some more information, and I do see it. And he asked for some information on, let's see, wait a minute, on the desire to, putting a person, wait a minute, but he asked for this particular information on greenhouse gas inventory. And when he did, we did receive this information, and I looked all through it and I read it, and it was a summary of analysis conducted to develop the greenhouse gas. It just went on and on about all the emissions and so much data analysis. And I called the planning department and I said to the person that put this together, did the planning department send out a request to have this information gathered? Did we pay a consulting firm or some type of a person to put this together? All this data, all this analysis, all this information? And he said, no, I did it. I said, are you a professional in this? Because I've never seen such data analysis and summary and information. And he said, well, it wasn't easy to do, but I did do it. There's a person that's not even a professional, and he's in the planning department, and he put this together. So I thought it was the duty of every department head to put together data and send all that data to Mr. Marchand and have him analyze it. I don't know how you couldn't do that. That's why I'm not supporting the position going to a public hearing, because I think we have talent right here that could do that and save us some money. That's strictly what I'm concerned about. That's the gist of my concern here.
Councilor Elliott?
Thank you. I wanted to follow up. Thank you, Mr. Manager, for that discussion, particularly for the people at home. I did read the report, and I did have a similar question. I think that was brought up by Councilor Rita Mercier, that, last couple of years, the city at zero cost has been active in the statewide. I want to have just one question. In the second paragraph, you indicate that a full rollout of the program was delayed. What exactly would that, a full rollout, what would that mean? Because I'd like to give credit where credit is due, and I think your administration in the last couple of years, in large part, maybe in a roundabout way, have implemented a lot of the probably recommendations or tools associated with CityStat. We've managed to keep services with less money, I think at a good level, losing close to 150 employees. So I mean, the administration has done a good job in keeping services and looking at inefficiencies. 18A tonight was a good example of it. But my long-winded question was, what exactly does full rollout mean in your memo?
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I think we have done well, and I think the credit really goes to the city employees that have been, we have reduced our, contrary to Mr. O'Connor, he's left, but his claim that government keeps on expanding. I think the proof and the pudding is that we've got roughly 150 less employees than we did a couple of years ago. But in terms of the delay in rolling this out, we have been participating in the MassStat meetings. We've been talking about what type of data we need to pull together and what the type of software or technology we need. And the bottom line is, I think we've determined that we really don't need to add any technology. We can utilize the Munis programs. We can utilize certainly the database programs we have, and the worksheets that we can utilize our GIS system. We have had a couple of interns working with us on sort of some pilot efforts, particularly with regards to inspectional services, of some data collection efforts there. But full rollout would involve much more than that. First off, it would apply to all departments. It would apply to much more data being collected. And I mean, literally, there is dozens of types of data that we would be collecting and analyzing. And there are, we can, as I said earlier, we can pull up the information on sick leave per department. But it really doesn't mean anything unless you compare it to other information that you have, and that's something the data analyst would actually do. It's something, frankly, that Mr. Marchand would be involved in the whole stat program, but the analyst would really be the number cruncher that's doing that's looking at the metrics. But beyond that, it's not just, as I said too, it's not just rolling out the data or just collecting the data and putting a report down in front of me or in front of the city council or anyone else. It's really taking that data and making a commitment. And there's some great literature, in fact I have it here in front of me, from where it's been utilized. And a key part of making it effective is being able to take that data and do something with it. And that can be the management people, the CFO, the HR director, the IT director, the city solicitor, the assistant to the city manager, that are sitting down and pouring through the data or getting the reports and saying, okay, what does this mean? Why are we seeing a spike? Why are we seeing a decrease? Why aren't we, how do we compare to other communities, and sending that data person out to gather it, or sending someone else out to gather it. It could be talking to the department head and saying, and obviously all this takes place with the relevant department head, but saying to the department head, give us the explanation. We're holding you accountable. Why is it that you're not, why we're seeing a spike in your, or a decrease in your department's performance compared to other departments? Now it could be, the end result could be, we're not dedicating enough resources. Let's do it. In talking to the employees, it might be that they don't have the technology or the tools that they need. Let's find out how we make that happen. And that's the type of thing, the follow-up stuff that I would look to the assistant to do, or I would look to the data analyst to participate in, or the other people on the team. But they all have departmental responsibilities. Let's keep that in mind. But the full rollout would be doing that. We kind of do a stat program already here, and some of you may have already seen it. Lowell was one of the first communities to really embrace police stat programs, the comp stat program, that I think when you go to a neighborhood meeting and you see the police officer there making a report on the crimes that have happened in that neighborhood and what's happening to address those, that's the stat program. That's the police stat program, the comp stat. That isn't something that just before he walks out the door, he's given the report. Every 2 weeks, the command staff of the police department sits down in a room around a table where they share information and they share ideas, and out of that comes solutions. And that's really what the city stat program is intended to replicate. Lowell stole CompStat from probably not good to say stole when you're talking about police work. We borrowed the CompStat program from New York and Boston, where Bill Bratton had put it in place. City Stat is really something that we're borrowing from these other communities, and we're learning from their examples. So I think that's a good thank you for that question, because it does talk about what's involved in the rollout.
Right. And I do think it makes some sense, Mr. Manager, and I was one of those people, to speak to your point, Mayor, that responded. And I responded based upon not so much the merit of the position, just the timing and our finances in the city. And I did read this. I read it twice, as a matter of fact, and it does make some sense, and your explanation helps, but I can't support it now, knowing the fiscal climate that we're entering. But I think to follow up, at some point in time, Madam Solicitor, can we get some explanation as to when we can speak and when we can't speak? Because if I'm not going to vote on this, I'd like to let the people, to send this to a hearing, I'd like to let the people at home know my reasons why. And I think I did, and I don't think I violated anything. I think when we're looking at zoning changes or planning board changes, things of that nature, then we are restricted. But I think, to speak to the mayor's point, sometimes our positions are known, and sometimes we're told we can't. So I think it would do us all a world of good to get some direction when we can, when we can't, because I think tonight I'm not going to vote for this, to send it to an ordinance, and I want to let the people at home know why.
Sure, I can put something like that together. I mean, just speaking very in broad terms, the instances in which you would clearly be prohibited, and instances that would clearly create significant legal issues for the city, such as instances that Councilor Caulfield had referred to, are instances in which the council is sitting in a quasi-judicial capacity. And those are cases where you might be hearing a demolition hearing, and an owner of the property is coming in to give you evidence and expecting you, rightfully so, to be objective and to be open and to listen to the evidence and to take it all into consideration. There really aren't necessarily bright lines. Your own council rules, Council 29, Council Rule number 29, speaks to ordinances and does specifically contemplate them going off, that they shall go to a public hearing if the council so votes to send it off to a public hearing. So there are clearly instances where council may decide not to send something off to a public hearing, thereby triggering, I guess, some sort of an indication as to where you stand on a particular issue. At the other end of the spectrum, there are instances where there are issues that come before this council that are purely legislative / political in nature. And those are instances in which there is likely a lot more freedom to be able to share your views or concerns prior to a public hearing, maybe on instances of accepting legislation, similar to what happens on a state and national level, where people come out and stake positions out prior to the healthcare bill coming forward, would be a good example, even though there might not be a public hearing component to it. But I'll try to put something together. Obviously, there is a balance in trying to be sensitive to the fact that that when the public comes to participate, they presumably don't want to come and participate if it's already known that it's sort of a futile effort on their part. But anyway, I'll try to put something together.
Thank you, that was helpful.
Yep.
Thank you, Council Martin and Council Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate, I would appreciate getting guidance from the solicitor too on these public hearing type issues. I think, you know, it's, for those of us who've been here a while, it's kind of drilled into you, you're not supposed to take a position in advance of the hearing. Yet, you know, in this particular issue, I mean, if there's going to be a roll call vote, you know, there's going to be debate on the vote potentially. I mean, it seems disingenuous to not be able to say why you're going to vote the way you are. And we also have, you know, aggressive media in the city. I mean, in this issue, I think I got 5 phone calls over the weekend from at least 3 different reporters seeking comment on an issue that, you know, the only reason you know it's going to a public hearing is because it has that word ordinance. And if you just kind of glance down the agenda without focusing on that and just went and read the report, you know, you wouldn't necessarily put that as the forefront of your mind. I can't, you know, make a comment on this. So I can appreciate there's not bright line tests, but there needs to be some guidance because, you know, people, I think the public deserves to hear an explanation of our views when we're going to assert them. And, you know, if some of us are out there commenting and others aren't, it looks like you're ducking the question, which is not necessarily the case at all. So I think that's a valid endeavor, and I know it may be difficult to do, but I think a little guidance is good. And we have some new members, but I think all of us here could use a little refresher in what the public hearing process is supposed to mean.
Thank you. Council Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In December of 2009, when I was the mayor, a request came before this council, and it was for the abandonment of Edward Street, and the vote was 9-0 to send it to a public hearing. I voted for that, knowing deep in my heart, when it came to that public hearing, and it came for discussion this year, under your leadership, I voted against that. Matter of fact, Councilor Murphy and Councilor Elliott voted against it as well. And it was a good, healthy debate. But I didn't go running around the city publicly stating I wasn't going to support sending that to a public hearing. Whether you have a roll call vote tonight or a voice vote, I'm going to vote to send this to a public hearing. I have never denied anything going to a public hearing, and I hope my good friend, Councilor Rita Mercia, feels the same as I do. Let's have a good debate the night of the public hearing, and I'll have much to say pertaining to this new position.
Thank you. Councilor Mendonça, then Councilor Dakota.
Yes, I'll be voting to send it to a public hearing. Please don't construe that as support for creating the position, may or may not. I do have some suggestions, though. I assume you'll be making an additional case at the public hearing. And although you've given us some data, I'd like to tie it back home to Lowell as to what will be the benefits here in Lowell as your goals for what will be achieved if this position were created. I say that because obviously some of these, like Baltimore is a much larger city, so telling me a number is not the same as a percentage of their budget that might be saved. Springfield is not exactly apples to apples because obviously they're starting out with a $40 million deficit. We know they've got to achieve the savings, period. And so we're not in that bad a shape, therefore the likelihood of achieving those kinds of savings is not likely. So to bring it back to what would you expect as a goal for this position in Lowell as to what might be a reasonable expectation of savings in our situation if this were implemented. And that would then be used, again, if this were adopted and created, as a measure of success down the road. Mm-hmm. So we'd be able to measure that success. Okay. And again, it would need to be a reasonable number, not something just to convince us that it's good because later it's going to look bad if we don't achieve it. Right. So something reasonable. So that's what I would suggest. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Dakota.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. First of all, I would like to accept your gentle rebuke, Councilor Caulfield. I appreciate that, and echo the sentiments that many of us have stated to the solicitor that it would be nice to have that information. And then to Mr. Mayor, I would like you to follow up on Rita's question about Henry's position and whether it's possible for him to cover some of this role or all of it. And then also, if you could just tell me if there's been any consideration about using interns and/or consultants for this role.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other discussion? Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I made this motion because I do understand that these are hard times. Because I do understand the concerns that people have in a climate, in a year where so many people have been laid off. That was the purpose of this motion. And what I can't understand is why a decision would be made before the debate takes place. Why we would not get public input on and really, promote and explain what this program would actually do. I think that this is supposed to be a deliberative body, and unless you actually have the debate take place, I don't understand how, really the purpose of the roll call vote. Nothing's being decided here. And I've actually expressed, private concerns to the city manager about this position, about how in fact it would work. So there's nothing that's going to, not take place if it's sent to a public hearing. And I would recommend that we do that.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. I think everybody's hit some good points here. I think the key is we need more information. Public hearing is a process to do that, and I expect the manager is going to come back with the information that we're requesting in terms of the priorities, where you expect this program to be successful in Lowell and how. come in with, I guess, estimates of what you think it may prove, the success might prove to be, but I know that's going to be difficult because you're starting, you're kind of trying to pull them out of thin air a little bit, but I think that's the key. We need to have this public process, find out the information. Mr. O'Connor came in tonight talking about increasing government and that we shouldn't be increasing government, and in reading the documents that were provided, this would work the opposite way. So I have questions. I'd like to ask them those questions, get more information. Hopefully we can get a comprehensive information session as we did tonight on the health insurance. I think everybody's questions were answered by that PowerPoint presentation, and I think the same thing can happen. Now, we may not all agree on which direction to take after the presentation, but I certainly think we should have it. We should have that public process. Mr. O'Connor is welcome to come back again, and anybody else that is for or against it. But I think we need to get this information so there's a clearer understanding of what this position is, why it's necessary, if it's necessary, and what the roles and what we expect to have for an outcome. Thank you.
The manager has requested, based upon the discussion we just had, to set the public hearing date for March 2nd instead of February 23rd to give the manager a little extra time to put together the presentation. So it'll be March 2nd. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Caulfield, yes.
When is that date again on the public hearing?
March 2nd.
March 2nd.
2nd, correct. Yes, March 2nd. Any further? Yes, Councilor Elliott.
Not to belabor the issue too much longer, and I will be brief, but in the future, perhaps we as a body can, have a full discussion before we decide to send this to an ordinance. It would only make sense. I mean, I thought the manager gave a pretty detailed and discussion of what the position is, what it's about. I think he elaborated tonight on the intent, and I think it's important that we have all that information before it goes to a public hearing so we can make a decision whether to move forward or not. That's why the process is established the way that it is. So you have all of the facts to make an informed decision, and I thought there was a very good discussion on this the particular issue tonight. And if there's additional information, but I think before we send it anywhere, we have to know what it's about, and that's why I'm not in favor. I understand what the position is, what the responsibility is, and what the costs are. So I think in the future, moving forward, we should all be made well aware and understand what we're doing before, instead of, it seems like we're putting the cart before the horse. We're sending it out to a public hearing, and then we're getting information. Maybe for the public, that would be helpful. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussion? We do have a motion by Councilor Mercia to have a roll call vote. We get a second to that motion to have a roll call vote?
Second.
Second by Councilor Elliott. Roll call.
Councilor Mendonça.
Question. We voting to send it to a public hearing?
Yes.
Roll call. Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
No.
Mayor Milanazzo.
Yes.
Councilor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Dakota.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
No.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
7 yeas, 2 nays, vote. The motion is referred.
Public hearing again will be on March 2nd. Thank you. Under reports, we have any subcommittee reports? Chair recognizes Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, before the City Council meeting, we held environmental subcommittee meeting in response to a motion I had made back in January 5th, to have the city manager report on plans and progress toward citywide sustainability plan. The main focus of our discussion tonight was really about the Green Communities Act of 2008, which is certainly a piece of the sustainability plan in its addressing of energy use and the emissions that result from that. For this particular legislation, the state requires that the city meet 5 criteria. which our city planner, Adam Bakey, had explained that we have met or are very soon to meet 4 out of the 5 criteria. The first being as of right siting for renewable energy projects. The second, the second really dealing with expedited permitting, which we already have through a number of different projects. The third being the baseline greenhouse emissions inventory, and in setting a target of reducing those emissions by 20% over the next 5 years. We received in our packets tonight or Friday a report on what our baseline emissions are now, and as Adam Bakey had explained, where the energy contract that we have with Amoresco and everything that's going on there nearly meets or will nearly meet that 20% reduction. The fourth piece is an item on the agenda for tonight, which would require that the city adopt a city fleet policy which would replace, where applicable, would replace vehicles with more fuel-efficient vehicles. And as explained during the presentation, exempt from those would be public safety vehicles, fire, police, and some of the larger DPW machinery. And the fifth was really the biggest piece, and something which will require council approval. The fifth is adoption of the Energy Stretch Code, which is an appendix to the building code that the city will be required to adopt this year, a few months down the road. And so out of that subcommittee meeting, we've referred that, I think, to a public hearing, to not exactly to a public hearing, but to take up by the full body and start that process. This legislation really provides, I think, the framework from which we can build some greater savings here in the city. It allows us to access funds through this Green Communities Act, which would allow us to then, capitalize on what we have done in getting other projects started up. There is a cap of $1 million for each year that would be available, and up to, I think, 10 million available throughout the state. A number of communities are beginning to adopt this stretch code, but of course it will need more public input, questioning, and we will be receiving from the Horsley Witten group that gave the presentation some more information about what exactly the cost will be to the builders and the homeowners. To sum up, I think it is a good start toward building, a more sustainable city, which is really about how we meet the needs of our current residents without placing undue burdens on future generations. And so I think, I appreciate the reports that were given to us, but this is something that needs to be done in a relatively quick manner, because there are deadlines to apply for this status. May 14th is the deadline to apply, and then May 28th, 2 weeks later, to be able to actually access those grant funds. So It was a good meeting, and I certainly think we'll be having several more over the course of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. It was a very good meeting, and it's my understanding that the report and recommendation of the subcommittee has been referred to the city manager to bring back to the full council. Councilor Elliott and Councilor
Thank you.
Dakota.
I saw some of the meeting actually at home and some here. So, Mr. Manager, we've met a couple of these criteria. Is that correct, or to the chairman?
So we've met the first two criteria.
Okay.
Which is the as-of-right
zoning,
as well as the expedited permitting. We still have we're still working on a wind turbine ordinance that could, that will also meet that first criterion. The third you have in your packet, we have essentially finished the baseline emissions, and now it's a matter of, establishing a target of at least 20% over 5 years. And then the two remaining, the fourth, the fleet policy really doesn't require any council approval. It's just a statement of policy by the administration. But the fifth will require a public hearing.
So is the subcommittee recommending the stretch code or just referring it to you?
I think the subcommittee is referring it to me to come back with the stretch code and then leave it up to the council to determine whether, as a group, whether to support it.
Okay, and you're going to come back with some hard costs, because the presentation indicated that there are some costs associated with with these different code requirements to new construction. I think there was, Council Martin asked a question about additions. We don't have a lot of 3,000 square foot or 3,700 square foot buildings in the city. There are a lot more additions, and that certainly is an issue of concern. But on item number 4, purchasing of fuel vehicles, we have to do that before May 14th when the application has to be in, or
No,
it's just a commitment saying in the future we'll be doing that?
There has to be a policy put in place, right?
Okay, great.
And it's not as onerous as it may seem, because certain vehicles are exempt from that, and even the standards are not that high in some of the others. So I think it's very, having said all that, I think it's very doable to do that.
All right, I'll look forward to the report. Thank you. Thank you.
Councilor Dakota?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know a lot of information will come out in the follow-up meetings, but I did have a question for you. If you may not know the answer to this, but if we are awarded the green communities, if we become a green community, is that grant money guaranteed, or do then we go into a competitive process to acquire the money?
You then would have to go into a competitive process to, you would have to have a specific project that would, in fact, warrant the actual funding. So that would take place, in that 2-week period. Hopefully it happens sooner. I think the actual opening of the process is sometime around March 18th to be able to start applying. And so.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Accept the report as a report of progress by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Dakota. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. It's a vote. Any other subcommittee reports? Hearing none. Moving on to the petitions. We have one claim for property damage referred to the Law Department by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, to vote. Moving on to the motion section. First motion of the evening by Councilor Mercia. Motion. City Council have the city manager have the MIS department make available more forms online as to accommodate a wider selection of users and allow better access to City Hall through their computer. Second by Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Mercia on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make this motion in response to the issues that I raised last week, identifying a situation that needed to be corrected, and it actually was, and I'm grateful that it was. However, if we could implement this motion to add more documents in PDF forms, this situation could have been averted with this particular issue anyway, and we could look into other farms that are not on there. I know people who have computers can download these applications, and sometimes it's time sensitive. People have to get applications in, and if someone came all the way to City Hall and the person wasn't there, they could be then in a category where they'd be leveled a fine, like to renew a car license, business license. If they fill out the form, they enclose the proper amount of a check, and they mail it off, and they put that envelope on their mailbox. They never have to go to City Hall. They never have to look for a place to mail the, they never have to look for a place to park, never have to have a slip and fall issue with City Hall. Everyone would be happy with this. So that's the gist of this motion. Now, I know that there are many forms already available online, but not all departments have them available, and I think that they should do as many as possibly allowed. If, as I explained last week, that a person went down to City Hall and the person who handled the permit was on vacation and not back to work in a week, and time was of the essence, and nobody else could have done that work, then this motion would alleviate that problem. This motion asks that we accommodate the customer in a business-friendly atmosphere, and that's the gist of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Thank you. Next motion by Council Mercia. City Council requests the city manager to establish a creative plan to repaint and paint crosswalks throughout the city. Seconded by Council Elliott. Council Mercia.
Now, I know that last Tuesday, 2 city councilors had a motion, and Councilor Caulfield had an excellent motion about that equipment to do the line painting in a thermoplastic setting, and that would alleviate the cost of duplicating the work every single year. It would be an excellent idea if we had this available. This motion just backs it up if it doesn't, if we don't get that equipment. It's $50,000. I hope that we could afford it, but I'm just bringing this motion forward because after people watched the council meeting, they called to my house and said that they are city workers. A few of them are city workers, and they would be willing to donate 20 hours perhaps in a week in the summer to put or the spring to put the lines down. By that they mean if we could look for available grant money and hire the youth of our city to, you hear about kids with graffiti, put them to work painting through a grant process, and have these adults that are city employees that want to donate their time and energy to be public safety people to watch while the kids paint the lines. So, I'm not saying child labor, but we're trying to get the youth and the adults together and volunteer, and people were kind enough to call my house saying that they'd be willing to volunteer and oversee the projects and not look for anything in return. They're insured anyways through city workers. They're not going to get paid, but they have insurance. Might as well utilize it. And I'm only bringing this forward because I think it's a good idea that they have. They took the time to call my house, and I'm sure that they will donate their time. I don't want kids out in the street putting down lines, but if they're there to supervise and put the cones down and act as, public safety people, I don't know why we couldn't think of that. However, I would rather see this equipment be used, and I know we have a department with hardly any employees there. It's very hard, and people are stepping forward to come and find solutions and try to make things work. Crosswalks are a very important issue. They provide people across safely, whether you're a senior citizen or you're a child or a parent or whatever. It's very, very important. There's many areas in the city that I don't want to see them go undone. So this motion just backs up the previous two, Councilor Dakota and Councilor Caulfield's motion of last week. We know we need them done. It's a state law, no doubt about it, and it's just another way of trying to save money with people volunteering to do that. Maybe there's a grant available, so that's the gist of this motion, and I'm very grateful of people that are watching the council with offering suggestions, and I'm just merely bringing them forward in that manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott?
Maybe there isn't, maybe there is a grant available, but Mr. Manager, is there any block grant funding available for something like this, something we can look into?
This wouldn't be eligible for community development block grant money. It's something that CDBG money can only be used for the benefit of areas that are primarily low to moderate income. So you couldn't use this as a general piece of equipment. You can't buy general pieces of municipal equipment for this reason. And the $50,000, I will add, the $50,000, and I haven't priced out one of these machines in a while, but the $50,000 is just the equipment. The thermoplastic, the true cost of the thermoplastic is really the materials that go with it. We do use thermoplastic whenever we repave a road. We always put down the thermoplastic at that point. It's very difficult to put thermoplastic down over thermoplastic. It just never seems to work right. Thermoplastic is also tends to be slippery, so there are issues with that in certain areas. Having said that, I like thermoplastic, but it is a very expensive application, and I think we need to find ways to do that. And so we are exploring a number of different options.
Well, that's good. Maybe I wasn't clear. I don't know if I wanted money for the machine, or at least identify some money so we could stripe the neighborhoods, crosswalks in those areas.
Well, certainly those areas.
Low, moderate income.
Right. The issue we have there is just the demand for that money is just so great. It becomes problematic.
Well, I understand, but I did see the Lowell plan got money for it for the study.
Right.
So. And then there was money last week for 2 for Lowell, which is good. I know I used to work in the program, so all the money isn't spent at the end of every year, and it does have to be reallocated. So it was just an idea to see if there's some money available. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motions, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Next motion by Councilor Caulfield. City Council requests the city manager contact the state and request they address the large depression in the VFW highway in the vicinity of Beaver Brook. Second by Councilor Broderick. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If anyone has traveled the VFW highway going northwest towards the university, and you go over the Beaver Brook Bridge, and if you're doing 45 miles an hour, you think you just lost the entire front end of your car. So I've gone over that many, many times, and I said, I've had it. I've got to do something. And matter of fact, I was with Representative Kevin Murphy last night with Council Rita Mercer at the Highlands meeting, and he said he would definitely get on this right away. But it's an accident waiting to happen. So it's a huge depression. So that's the gist of the motion.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Thank you. Next motion by Councilor Caulfield. City Council requests the city manager to have the proper department install reduced speed signs in the VFW highway heading northwest toward the university. Second by Councilman Mendonça. Councilor Caulfield.
On that same stretch of roadway, Mr. Mayor, the speed limit states 55 miles an hour. And as you get to the powerhouse, it's 30 miles an hour with a Lowell police officer waiting there. And I don't know how many people have received outstanding speeding tickets because they didn't know it was 30 miles an hour. So I would like to have a sign 500 yards prior to that, reduce speed to 30 miles an hour. So people will at least have a chance to slow down. And you get a $150 fine for speeding. And that goes on your insurance and so forth. And it's not fair. So that's the gist of that motion.
Thank you, Councilor Caulfield. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed? It's a vote. Next motion by Councilor Murphy. City Council requests the city manager to adopt a fuel-efficient city fleet purchasing policy in accordance with Massachusetts Green Communities Act. Seconded by Councilor Elliott. Councilor Murphy.
Again, this was we went over this earlier. It's just to jumpstart the process so that we are able to meet the deadlines here for the green communities designation. And so it's pretty straightforward. There's examples of, statements of policy on the Department of Energy Resources website, and, but as I understand that the administration is working on that anyhow. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to this motion, and we're talking about the Green Community Act, and we're talking about the environment and all this stuff, I failed to say, and I could segue this in, that at the Winterfest, the Lowell High School Green Environmental Club and the Lowell Green Team put down receptacles to recycle, and our recycling coordinator was there, and there was no added cost to the city, but that was another form of being a green city and a green community, so I just thought I'd bring that up.
Glad you brought that up. Great. Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? It's a vote. Next motion by Councilor Mendonça. City Council requests the city manager to prepare an inventory of properties owned by the state and the amount of real estate taxes that would have been received if the properties were privately held. Seconded by Councilor Broderick. Councilor Mendonça.
Yes. There's things that transpired recently, and that in the purchase of the DoubleTree Hotel, and also with the governor's budget being filed, I saw that in there they had a provision for state-owned land where the state provides some funds to the city in the form of revenue. And in the FY 2010, we're scheduled to receive $176,000 some dollars, and the governor is proposing that go up to $199,000, which is a $22,000 increase. However, if you were to go back and look at what we were receiving from the DoubleTree in the form of revenue, you'll find that it's in excess of $200,000, or at least it would be in FY 2010. And so that in itself exceeds what we're going to be receiving from the state. It's great to have the colleges and the university and a lot of the state services that are provided, but there is a cost to that as well, that being the difference between what they give us for the state-owned land and what we would otherwise receive from that real estate, which of course is spread out through all of the residents and other businesses in the city. So I'm not sure what the number will be if we actually added it all up. I know it's going to be a lot higher than what we're getting, and it might be a point where we try to lobby our state delegation to see if we're getting our fair share as far as versus real estate occupied by the state. So I ask this as a point of information so that the council will have, and that we'll have available to us if we need to lobby the state in the future. So I hope that the council will support it.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? It's a vote. The last motion of the evening by Councilor Mendonça. City Council requests the city manager have the proper department investigate and report on the feasibility of licensing, permitting the keeping of animals when reasonable conditions are met that would otherwise be prohibited by City Ordinance Chapter 104. Seconded by Councilor Mercia. Councilor Mendonça.
Yeah, this is actually a request of a resident who has purchased property in Lowell, and they purchased it out in Pawtucketville. Of course, we still have some room there, larger lots. And so in researching the property, they asked their real estate, will be able to bring our horse here? And if the real estate agent says, of course, you just get a permit and we'll be all set. But in reading the ordinance that I referenced, that there's 4 or 5 categories of animals that generally pets you keep in your home, be that classification, that are allowed, and generally everything else is prohibited. My understanding is, and of course the investigation will bring this out, is that other animals are not allowed. That version of the law was adopted in 1996. I know when I bought my home in Pawtucketville, there were people that were keeping horses, and this person it is a horse, and they claim that they know of at least 2 other residents of Pawtucketville that currently keep horses, so obviously, according to this, they're doing it illegally. In any case, I believe that if there are proper conditions we can set so that, it's reasonable for any abutting neighbors, that they have a large enough lot rather, that could hold the animal and be kept humanely, if that's a proper term for animals. And so I bring this forward just so that the investigation can take place, and maybe if conditions could be set and then met, that we would at least have a way of regulating it through the health department and whoever, through the licensing process. People get a license for a reasonable fee, and we could occasionally inspect the property to make sure that they have the proper conditions for keeping or appropriate for keeping a specific animal. And so I bring it forth on behalf of that resident.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Mercy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it possible we could have that blurb of that ordinance that states that they can't keep a certain animal, so we could look at that? I think this is important to revisit it, because I do particularly know this woman, and she's had horses all her life when she was such a young child, so she's quite good at what she does, and she'd be very good with keeping this particular horse. And I'm wondering, there's a lot of land out there in God's country that probably could sustain this animal, so maybe I'd like to get a copy of the ordinance so we could revisit it and look at it if I could. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to ask the indulgence of my colleagues to suspend the rules to bring in an issue. I meant to file a motion last week, and it just slipped my mind, but it seems important enough to at least get an update or a discussion from the manager and the mayor. And it's regarding, I think it was a story in the Boston news station as well as a local newspaper on this fist fighting that has been taking place, or that is taking place. Yeah. So I just want to get an update to see if the managers had a discussion with the chief or the mayor with the superintendent as to any actions or plan that's proposed to address this.
Motion by Councilor Elliott to suspend the rules, seconded by Councilor Mercia. All those in favor of the suspension signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Rules are suspended.
And that really is a motion, Mayor. But I know on the state level they're addressing the posting of the video on the YouTube or these other social networking sites. But it was disturbing, number one, to see it on the Boston newspaper, news stations, as well as to see it in the local newspaper. I don't know how prevalent it is, but as a parent of all the parents out there, knowing that it seems to be a regular activity or whatever they want to call it. Mr. Manager, what is the city doing? The chief of police or the school? I know Mrs. Maris said it's a budget issue, but is there any actions or plan that we're putting in place to try to stem this problem?
Well, obviously, I'd like to, get you a full report of what's been happening with that. It was a topic of our gang advisory task force last week, which District Attorney Jerry Leone sits on that task force. We had the state senator there too, looking at some of the statutory possibilities. It is something that the police department is working on, particularly with our school resource officers and the school administration. I would not go so far as to call it, in no way call it something that's prevalent or, obviously it's taking place in the city. There was a similar incident in North Andover just last year. There are similar incidents in almost every community around us and across the country. So it is a disturbing trend that we see. Obviously, there have been fights among youths for years. What makes it more disturbing, obviously, is that it's being videoed and then putting out for public dissemination. What's helpful to us in that is that, unlike fights in the past that we only hear about, now we actually see them. And it gives us an opportunity then to take action by our law enforcement agencies. And that is taking place. But there's also talk of a forum at the high school that the district attorney as well as the local police would participate in trying to send the message home to the youth that might be participating in any activities like this, that it's not acceptable and in fact it's illegal, and they should be warned of that so that they stay away from that.
All right. Thank you, and I agree, and I hope it's not prevalent, but I've been coaching young, youth, kids, girls in this age bracket for 16 years, and you listen to them, and they're girls from all across the city, and it's happening more often than not, I suppose, and like you say, seeing it is more upsetting, and who knows how bad it is. But if Mayor, I'm wondering if the school committee or the superintendent is deliberating on this?
Yes, we are. We're actually having a public safety subcommittee meeting regarding this issue, and I know that the superintendent has been in communication with Chief LaValle on the issue as well. So we're expecting a report from the school side.
Thank you. I didn't doubt that nothing was being done or anything was being done, but it's good to let us know and people at home that we're on it. And okay, thank you.
Thank you. While we're under suspension, if I could, from the chair, ask what's the wish of the council for next Tuesday? It is school vacation week, and I believe that a number of my colleagues will be out of town next Tuesday. In fact, I heard the number 4 or 5, so I don't know if we want to cancel next Tuesday's meeting or go forward. It's really up to the full council. So I would just entertain a motion.
Make a move to cancel next Tuesday's meeting.
Motion by Council Caulfield to cancel, seconded by Council Martin. Do we need a roll call on that? We do. We need a roll call. Roll call.
Councilor Mendonça?
Yes.
Councilor Mercia?
Yes.
Yes.
Murphy?
Yes.
Roderick?
Yes.
Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Dakota?
Yes.
Elliott?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
City Manager Lynch?
Yeah. Well, for those of you that are going away, please have a safe trip, safe and enjoyable trip. Motion to adjourn by Council Mercia, seconded by Council Mendonça. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Thank you.